The Mamiya RZ67 is a very heavy camera, especially when fitted with the Prism Finder on top rather than using the waist level hood. It is not an intuitive camera. If you have never used it before and you would take it to your client shoot for the first time, that might not be the wisest decision. That said, you can fall in love with it. The results it produces are excellent. The model I own is Mamiya RZ67 Pro 2, which I used for over a year now. Before that, I mainly shoot with Contax 6x7, but I needed the camera that was more practical for product and detail shots. The Bellows focusing system, which lets you shoot very close to your subject, was the main reason I bought it. And these are some of the first results I achieved. Personally, I really like them. When I received the scans and I took photos of them and then started editing them, I was really surprised, and I was really nicely surprised how they look like comparing to the shots that I was able to take with Contax 6x7. The shots were way closer and very precise, crispy. I mean, mainly the product shots were way closer, which was the main issue that I had with the previous camera. Another big advantage is how easy it is to switch from landscape to portrait format. You rotate the film back instead of having to tilt the entire camera on its side, which is especially useful when working on a tripod. At first the camera was a challenge because I bought it with only the waist level hood and not the Prism Finder. Trying to frame precisely with left-right movement was frustrating, especially under tight deadlines. I eventually invested in the AE Prism Finder, which solved two problems at once. Framing became faster and more accurate. It added a built-in light meter, which I could set to consistently overexposed by one stop, which is my preferred shooting style, because then the shadows are protected and I just overexposing a little bit the skies. But the main thing is that I'm saving a lot of information in shadows. Before that, I was constantly checking exposure with my digital camera. With Prism Finder, even close-up corrections, the extra light needed for Bellows extension, are automatically included, which makes portrait shots far easier. Previously, my portraits felt very posed, like large format work, but with the RZ I can capture natural expression while focusing only on the subject. The lens I use most is the standard and legendary Mamiya Sekor 110mm f2.8, roughly a 55mm equivalent in full frame terms. Recently I also tried the 50mm f4.5, which is closer to 24mm full frame equivalent, ideal for architecture. I only rent it, but it is definitely the next lens I plan to buy. I am aware that these cameras can develop electronic faults over time, but as long as mine works properly, it remains my favorite medium format system. The design also protects you from wasting frames. Each film back has a dark slide that covers the film, and if you load the film and set it to frame 1, the camera won't let you fire until you remove the dark slide. This has saved me several times during the shoots when I was distracted. There are also interlocks that prevents misfires. For example, during architecture work I couldn't release the shutter because the 50mm lens was set to T, time exposure, rather than N, normal. These safeguards support the photographer rather than getting them in the way. However, it can feel that they are getting in the way, but trust me, they are very useful, because even with them I managed to misfire some shots, especially because the trigger is so sensitive, and when I hold the camera and I'm trying to, with Prism Finder, to frame on a subject and maybe then I'm moving away the camera, my finger is still on the trigger, and sometimes I can click it and just lose the frame by accident. So still you can misfire, but with all of those protections you can at least save some frames during the photo shoot. Another interesting aspect is how the shutter system works. Because the shutter is built into the lens, you need to attach the cable release directly to the lens until a red line shows. For long exposures, you will set the camera to B. Then, once you have like this camera ready, pressing the shutter speed button only raises the mirror, clearing the film path. You then have about 60 seconds before the camera beeps, reminding you to make the actual exposure by triggering the cable release. This makes long exposure straightforward, controlled, and you feel more safe that you will not have any camera shakes when you take the shot. And yes, the RZ67 is heavy, as I mentioned before, and not very portable, but in my opinion, it is worth the effort. If your work combines product photography, close-up detail shots and portraits, it is superb choice. The next system on my wish list is the Contax 645. It has the autofocus, in-camera metering, and the ability to record exposure settings directly on the film edge, which makes it very tempting upgrade. When you are using the Prism Finder, you have to set your camera on AEF, which is very important. If let's say your Prism Finder is like this, and you can set your exposure directly on the Prism Finder, then setting up on AEF allows camera to be controlled by this Prism Finder. At the beginning I didn't know it, so when I received this and I installed the Prism Finder on top of the camera, I was worried that it just doesn't work. I didn't understand why I cannot see the metering. I thought that it's just a broken model, but at least I saw that it fixed the axis, that I can see correctly how to frame the subject. However, I was just annoyed that maybe it doesn't work the metering system. However, in another video, which I will just link below, another person was explaining that you have to set it up on AEF. So that's why I would like to stress again, you have to set it up on this, and then your Prism Finder would be able to take control over the camera and show you the correct exposure. Yeah, I think this might be useful for some of you. It is amazing camera and it is very heavy. However, if I know that I have to cover on a day portraits and product shots, this one is my go-to. And to be honest, when I'm thinking about Contax 645, I'm not sure about the product shots. If I would need maybe another camera, if I would need another lens to be closer to the subject, like any macro lens. Here, at the same time, I have everything already built in what I need, and maybe the only thing that I'm missing is to have different lens, to have wider lens, because recently I like shots with wide angle lens, and 24 is my go-to. So I would say maybe this would be thing that would be worth to upgrade. But yeah, I mean, in general, this camera is fantastic. And maybe with Contax 645, because I'm like in between those, that I would use the other one if there is like an event and I would need flash, and that camera is already checking the exposure, if that is more automated, and that would be great. Plus this that has information on the film, what type of settings you were using to take a shot. That's also very interesting, because with this I don't have any information. I'm not writing down the settings that I use to take a particular shot, because on the day I don't have time, and I don't think anyone has time to write those details. If I would have to recommend any camera for anyone who is in a similar situation as me, that is taking photos of products and portraits, this camera is fantastic. So yeah, highly recommend if anyone is thinking about it and would like to add film shots to their digital work. It is fantastic camera and incredible journey just to learn it and use it. Highly recommend. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope it was helpful. See you next time.